This is Pulse of Africa, the face and voice of Africa. The story of resurgent and burgeoning Africa is here, only on the Pulse of Africa channel. Pulse of Africa, the face and voice of Africa.
Welcome to Ethiopia, your second home. As you gather for the 48th Ordinary Session of the Executive Council and the 39th Ordinary Session of the AU Assembly, the vibrant city of Addis Ababa opens its arms to you. This year, leaders from across the continent unite under the powerful theme, assuring sustainable water availability and safe sanitation systems to achieve the goals of Agenda 2063. Together, we embark on a journey of meaningful discourse and shared visions for a brighter future. But it's not just about discussions within these esteemed halls. As you can see, the streets of Addis Ababa are alive with transformation, all ready to welcome you. Don't miss the iconic Adwa Victory Memorial, a symbol of resilience and pride commemorating Africa's triumph over colonialism. It stands as a testament to the determination of a people ready to defend their sovereignty. Once again, a very warm welcome to Addis Ababa, a city in motion and a destination that feels like home. Together, let's shape the future. Hello and welcome. I'm Edo Masai and this is Pulse of Africa News, coming to you live from Addis Ababa, the political capital of Africa. Today's news provides comprehensive coverage of the high-level deliberations at the 48th Ordinary Session of the Executive Council of the African Union. The 48th Ordinary Session of the African Union Executive Council has elected 10 member states to serve on the AU Peace and Security Council for the 2026 up to 2028 term, strengthening the continent's primary organ for conflict prevention and crisis response. The newly elected members are Benin, Gabon, Lesotho, Morocco, Somalia, and South Africa, while Cote d'Ivoire and the Democratic Republic of Congo, Sierra Leone, and Uganda were re-elected to continue their service. The new mandate will run from 1st April 2026 to 31st March 2028. Established in 2004, the PSC is the AU's standing decision-making body for the prevention, management, and resolution of conflicts. The 15-member council authorizes peace support operations, imposes sanctions, addresses unconstitutional change of government, and coordinates counterterrorism efforts across the continent. The council operates within the African Peace and Security Architecture, which includes the Continental Early Warning System, the African Standby Force, and the Panel of the Wise. Its role has become increasingly significant amid ongoing security challenges in the Sahel, the Horn of Africa, and parts of Central and Eastern Africa. The elected members are expected to be formally endorsed by heads of state and government during the 39th Ordinary Session of the AU Assembly, scheduled for 14 and 15 February 2026 in Addis Ababa. As the Union advances efforts to strengthen African-led peace initiatives and implement the Silencing the Guns agenda. His Majesty King Letsi III of Kingdom of Lesotho has praised Ethiopia's integrated child survival and nutrition programs during a visit to Zewditu Memorial Hospital in Addis Ababa, describing the country's efforts as a model for Africa. The king, who serves as the African Union champion for nutrition, toured the hospital alongside Ethiopia's health minister, Addis Ababa, officials from Nutrition International, and representatives of the government of Canada. Speaking after the visit, King Letsi said he was impressed by Ethiopia's systematic integration of nutrition into its broader health services, noting that the country's approach demonstrates strong political commitment and effective implementation. He highlighted Ethiopia's progress in tackling anemia among women and children through routine screening, micronutrient supplementation, and antenatal care integration, describing anemia as a major but preventable public health challenge across Africa.
I have witnessed firsthand the forward-looking and integrated approaches Ethiopia is taking to safeguard the health and development of its children and mothers. From paperless electronic medical records that enhance continuity of care to community-based health insurance that expands access, from strong maternal and child survival programs to therapeutic feeding, early child stimulation, and follow-up services that ensure no child is left behind. What is especially commendable is the systemic way in which nutrition has been embedded within the broader health system.
The king also commended Ethiopia's use of integrated health services, including electronic medical records, community-based health insurance, maternal and child survival programs, and therapeutic feeding initiatives. Health Minister Addis Ababa said the visit showcased Ethiopia's long-term vision of strengthening nutrition as a key pillar of human capital development, supported by more than 40,000 health extension workers serving communities nationwide.
This model has a high impact that has been already tested over the years, including immunization, vitamin A supplementation, zinc supplementation, breastfeeding promotion. When we walked today, you have seen mothers caring their children, and they're also learning from each other about what to do for their children. It is not about separation, but bonding that we need, both at a continental level on the things we do, but also at a hospital level where mothers can sit and discuss. The work we have is about delivering directly to the community. It is about decentralization, not just about centralized care. We can transform care if we can decentralize and make it a center of attention to the community. The high-level care of health centers, hospitals such as Zauditu, can provide that emergency obstetric care, early childhood care, a diagnostic service that we give to the neonates, to the children, to the mothers, specialized care and treatment, ensuring that clear referral pathways are in place. The model we see in here is about a continuum of care.
She noted that Ethiopia has achieved major health gains over the past 25 years, with under 5 mortality declining from 166 to 51 deaths per 1,000 live births, although challenges remain in reducing neonatal mortality and malnutrition. Joel Spicer, President and CEO of Nutrition International, warned that global progress in child survival is reversing, estimating that 30 million children could die from preventable causes in the next 5 years, including 18 million in Africa.
So our visit here to this hospital, and I must express my gratitude to all people that work here, has shown us a standard that other countries need to meet. Is it being met everywhere in the country, in other countries? Is it even being met in Canada, I wonder, when I was walking around? No, it's not. But Ethiopia has the courage and the vision and the leadership. And those are 3 very important ingredients if we are going to save children from dying. They are integrating new interventions. We heard about double fortified salt. We heard about taking more agency and leadership on vitamin A. That's wonderful. I must say I was extremely proud to watch His Majesty and Minister Mektes, and to also be able to give vitamin A to a child.
He praised Ethiopia's comprehensive health strategy and emphasized the importance of international partnerships, noting that collaborative efforts are essential to ensure every child survives, grows, and reaches their full potential. The United Kingdom has underscored its intention to strengthen ties with the continent through partnerships rooted in mutual respect and shared interests. The 2026 African Union Summit has drawn international organizations and countries from across the globe, all seeking to deepen engagement with the AU and advance multilateral cooperation. The UK's permanent representative to Ethiopia in the African Union, Ambassador Darren Welch, emphasized that Britain's approach to Africa is evolving. The UK wants to build and deepen its relationship with Africa based on mutual respect, Ambassador Welch stated, highlighting a shift from traditional donor-recipient dynamics towards more balanced and equal partnerships.
The United Kingdom has recently adopted a new approach to Africa, and our Africa Minister is here in Ethiopia this week as well for the summit. And our new approach to Africa is based on respectful partnerships, mature partnerships of mutual benefit, of finding more ways to invest, as we spoke about earlier, and having moving beyond the old-fashioned relationships of donor and recipient of aid to more equal partnerships, which feels more modern and more appropriate for the respectful way that we want to engage with Africa. And we want to see African voice amplified and magnified on the world stage.
Ambassador Welch noted that the UK is working closely with African nations to support the AU's Agenda 2063, the continent's long-term strategic framework for inclusive growth and sustainable development. He stressed that a stronger Africa is not only vital for the continent itself, but also for fostering sustainable and mutually beneficial relations with the UK.
We are working with the African Union on adaptation to climate change, on that African comprehensive, the continental free trade agreement to get that intra-African trade flowing. And we are working on peace and security issues as well. So it's a really important continent for the United Kingdom. We've got long history here. We want to use that history to build modern partnerships for a future where Africa is going to grow and grow.
The ambassador further explained that Britain intends to draw on its long-standing historical connections with African countries to forge deeper friendships and more resilient partnerships. This approach reflects the UK's recognition of Africa's growing role in global affairs and its commitment to supporting African-led initiatives. By reaffirming its commitment to respectful collaboration, the UK signals its readiness to work alongside African countries in areas ranging from economic growth and climate resilience to peace and stability. The African Union, AU, has called on member states to urgently boost investment in water, sanitation, and digital agriculture, warning that the continent's development and food security depend on bold political and financial commitments. Speaking at a media briefing on the margins of the 48th session of the AU Executive Council, AU Commissioner for Agriculture, Rural Development, Blue Economy, and Sustainable Environment, Moses Bilakari, said the AU's 2026 theme that reflects a collective recognition that water is central to human security, social stability, and economic transformation. The summit is being held under the theme of the year, assuring sustainable water availability and safe sanitation systems to achieve the goals of Agenda 2063. Bilakari said more than 400 million people in Africa still have access to safe water for daily use, while over 800 million are without basic hygiene services. He added that there is an estimated annual financing gap of about $30 billion needed to meet Sustainable Development Goal on water and sanitation. There is no life without water, and no development is possible without water. Water connects all development sectors: agriculture, energy, industry, and the environment, he said, urging governments to elevate water from a sectoral issue to a strategic asset for Africa's growth and climate resilience.
There is no life without water, and no development is possible without water. Water connects all development sectors, serving as an essential resource for agriculture, for energy, for industry, as well as the natural environment, which is a crucial source of livelihood for a significant portion of the African population, especially in our rural areas. That doesn't, of course, preclude the urban areas as well. There is therefore a need to immediately elevate water from a sectorial issue to a core strategic asset for Africa's economic growth, for Africa's stability and climate resilience, which is underpinned with a strong political commitment.
He said the African Union Commission has developed a continental roadmap to drive transformative change in water and sanitation. Turning to agriculture, Vilakari said Africa remains food insecure and continues to spend close to $20 billion annually on food imports, a trend he said must be reversed. He highlighted progress under the Comprehensive Africa Agriculture Development Program, CAADP, and the Kampala Declaration adopted in 2025. He said the completion of the CAADP domestication guidelines will help countries integrate continental commitments into national agri-food investment plans, while a new results framework and indicators will strengthen accountability and evidence-based tracking.
We have already achieved major milestones with the completion of the CAADP domestication guidelines. These guidelines provide a unified, practical framework to support member states in integrating CAADP commitments into their national agri-food systems investment plans. These guidelines also enhance coherence. They improve planning quality and create a more harmonized implementation process across the continent.
On digital agriculture, the commissioner said technology is rapidly reshaping African farming by improving access to timely information, boosting resilience, and enabling data-driven decisions across value chains. He said the AU Digital Agriculture Strategy 2024 up to 2030 provides a continental framework to scale up digital tools, improve food and nutrition security, strengthen climate resilience, and create new economic opportunities. The modernization of agriculture through digital transformation is essential for inclusive growth and sustainable development across Africa, Vilakari said.
Welcome to Ethiopia, your second home. As you gather for the 48th Ordinary Session of the Executive Council and the 39th Ordinary Session of the AU Assembly, the vibrant city of Addis Ababa opens its arms to you. This year, leaders from across the continent unite under the powerful theme, assuring sustainable water availability and safe sanitation systems to achieve the goals of Agenda 2063. Together, we embark on a journey of meaningful discourse and shared visions for a brighter future. But it's not just about discussions within these esteemed halls. As you can see, the streets of Addis Ababa are alive with transformation, all ready to welcome you. Don't miss the iconic Adwa Victory Memorial, a symbol of resilience and pride commemorating Africa's triumph over colonialism. It stands as a testament to the determination of a people ready to defend their sovereignty. Once again, a very warm welcome to Addis Ababa, a city in motion and a destination that feels like home. Together, let's shape the future.
The African Union prioritized peace and security through mediation, negotiation, and Peace and Security Council. It works to prevent conflict and to address root causes for the lasting stability across the continent. Progress in regional cooperation and conflict prevention both support the broader development growth across our continent. These efforts strengthen our resilience and pave the way for sovereignty across the continent. And all African leaders will be focusing to reinforce these mechanisms on the 39th session of the African Union Assembly from February 14th to 15th, 2026, right here in Addis Ababa. And we, Pulse of Africa, will be your trusted media platform where you get all information across the continent. Make sure to stay tuned.
If you don't tell your story, it will be told by others. They'll talk of hunger, they'll talk of war, they'll talk of conflict, but they'll not say the things that are happening in Africa that are positive.
This is POA, a very new media organization in Ethiopia.
We have to be voice for ourselves. There is no one else that can tell our story better than us.
If it's defending African matters, then go for it. Go for Pulse Media.
This is the Pulse of Africa. Tune in, follow the journey, and learn about the news and what's shaping our African continent.
I am really impressed by the work that they are doing by telling the African story from Africa for Africans. I think it's definitely needed.
Please subscribe to the Pulse of Africa on all platforms.
Professor Gaspard Banyan Kimbona, Commissioner for Education, Science, Technology and Innovation at the African Union Commission, emphasized the African Union's ongoing efforts to advance continental education objectives as part of Agenda 2063. Speaking on the critical importance of investing in human capital, Commissioner Banyan Kimbona cautioned that Africa stands at a pivotal crossroads. We must invest in our children's minds today, or we will pay a heavy price tomorrow in the form of instability, inequality, and continued dependence, he stated. He stressed the need for African countries to harness their greatest asset, the intellectual potential of their people.
Africa as of today stands at a crossroads. We have two choices. Actually one, but anyway, we can have two. Either we invest in our own children's mind today, that's the option number one, or we pay the price of instability, inequality, and dependence tomorrow. If it was you to choose on behalf of the African continent, what would you choose? Keep your answer.
Highlighting alarming statistics on learning outcomes, the Commissioner noted that approximately 80% of young people under the age of 10 in Africa are unable to read and understand a simple text. He warned that failure to address learning, poverty, and the widening skills gap risks transforming the continent's much anticipated demographic dividend into a time bomb and a missed opportunity for sustainable development.
We have a kind of three transformative shift that we are pushing through that decade, and its pillars, as I mentioned them as strategies. From access to mastery, we want every child to achieve that literacy and that numeracy by age of 10. From diploma to skills, and this is where I think we have been cheated as African. You know, having a paper, even if it doesn't correspond to what you have in your brain, you feel very, very comfortable. And we want every young person to gain not a good paper with a seal, but competencies, especially for the green, digital, and creative economies. That is the current trend.
To reverse this trend, Commissioner Bayan Kimbona reaffirmed the African Union's commitment through the recently launched Decade of Accelerated Action for the Transformation of Education and Skills Development in Africa, starting from 2025 up to 2034. By 2034, Africa aims to ensure every child achieves foundational literacy and numeracy. Every young person gains skills for the green and digital economies. Every teacher is well trained and empowered as a nation builder, and higher education institutions become leading centers of research, innovation, and solutions to continental challenges. He further called on African governments to leverage emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence and to mobilize sustainable financing for the education sector to accelerate progress toward these goals. On the margins of the 48th session of the AU Executive Council, the IGAD Executive Secretary, Warqineh Gabayo, received Mohi El-Din Salem, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Sudan, following Sudan's resumption of its membership. Discussions focused on the peace and security situation and the importance of sustained regional cooperation. The Executive Secretary welcomed the Minister to the IGAD Council of Ministers and reaffirmed IGAD's commitment to supporting lasting peace and stability for the Sudanese people and the region. Ethiopia's Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, GERD, has been highlighted by the African Union Commission as a leading example of domestic resource mobilization, with officials urging African countries to replicate similar models to finance critical infrastructure and reduce reliance on external funding. Speaking on the margins of the 48th session of the AU Executive Council, the AUC Commissioner for Infrastructure and Energy said shifting global economic conditions, rising capital costs, and declining development assistance require Africa to rethink how it funds long-term projects. She pointed to GERD's largely domestically financed construction as proof that transformative infrastructure can be delivered through national commitment and citizen participation.
The Ethiopian Renaissance Dam as an example of domestic resource mobilization, certainly. The fact that majority of it is funded by citizens, and the fact that the funding really was Ethiopia itself mobilizing from different sources within, that is actually a very good example that for the most part needs to be emulated. And that's the heart of domestic resource mobilization, right? It's your citizens, it's your own enterprises, etc. So the answer to your question is yes. It's a good example of domestic resource mobilization.
With the AU's 2026 theme focused on sustainable water management and sanitation, the Commissioner described water as core economic infrastructure essential to industrialization. She noted that nearly 300 million Africans lack access to safe drinking water and about 780 million lack adequate sanitation, gaps that directly affect productivity, public health, and investment potential. Closing the water infrastructure deficit alone requires an estimated $30 billion. The Commissioner emphasized the need to accelerate implementation of the AU's Program for Infrastructure Development in Africa, PIDA, which includes 69 priority cross-border projects in transport, energy, ICT, and water. She stressed that infrastructure planning must be insulated from political cycles and integrated into national development strategies to ensure continuity and long-term impacts.
Ethiopia's supply of water to Djibouti, as an example to other countries, certainly. When we are talking about African integration, we are talking about, it's not just about trade of products, as it were. It's also trade of our own resources among ourselves for our own development. So water to Djibouti by Ethiopia is critical. We mentioned earlier that water is fundamental to productivity. It's fundamental to human health. It's fundamental to the the delivery of our manufacturing requirements, whether we are talking at a base level, just a factory that manufactures widgets, or we are talking now in the new industries like the data centers. When you're talking the digital, there's a huge water requirement in those sorts of infrastructure, in that sort of infrastructure. So the supply of water to neighboring countries is quite important.
She also underscored the importance of unlocking Africa's own financial resources, noting that an estimated $4.6 trillion in African financial assets, including pension funds, remain underutilized, calling for diversified partnerships and stronger local participation. She urged countries to negotiate infrastructure deals on African terms, promote local content and skills development, and deepen regional cooperation in strategic resources such as water and energy. Framing GERD as more than a national achievement, the Commissioner said it represents a broader continental lesson. Africa's sustainable development will increasingly depend on its ability to finance its own priorities, strengthen regional integration, and build resilient infrastructure that supports industrial growth. Ghana is leading a renewed effort at the United Nations to have the transatlantic slave trade formally declared a crime against humanity, intensifying Africa's campaign for reparatory justice and historical accountability. Speaking on behalf of African states, Ghana's representatives urged the international community to recognize the lasting social, economic, and psychological consequences of the slave trade on Africa and the global African diaspora. The proposal frames the transatlantic slave trade not only as a historical atrocity, but as a crime whose legacy continues to shape global inequalities.
Consistent with the Accra Declaration on Reparations and the AU Assembly's decision on reparative justice, Ghana, on behalf of the African Union, intends to table a resolution at the United Nations General Assembly on the 25th of March this year, seeking the formal and universal recognition of the transatlantic slave trade and slavery as the gravest crime against humanity. Ghana formally requests the unflinching support and co-sponsorship of all AU member states for this resolution. We have already worked extensively with experts in the African Union, in the CARICOM Commission, and in the larger diaspora community. And we believe that this is a time to secure justice. By standing together at the United Nations, we signal to the world that Africa will no longer allow the scale of its historical suffering to be minimized.
Diplomatic sources indicate that the initiative seeks to strengthen the legal and moral basis for discussions on reparations, restitution, and structural redress. Supporters argue that formal recognition by the UN would add significant weight to calls for meaningful engagements between affected nations and former slave trading powers. Ghana has positioned itself at the forefront of the reparatory justice movement, notably through initiatives such as the Year of the Return and sustained diaspora outreach programs. Officials stress that the push is aimed at promoting historical truth, reconciliation, and equitable development rather than division. The move aligns with broader African Union efforts to advance reparatory justice within the framework of long-term continental development. If adopted, the declaration could mark a pivotal moment in global discourse on accountability and open new avenues for structured dialogue on reparations. That's the news for this hour. Next up is our weekly program. Please stay and watch. Thank you for joining us. Goodbye.
From Rome to Addis Ababa, measuring the Matai Bridge as Italy-African summit moved south. 2 years ago, in the ornate halls of Rome's Palazzo Madama, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni pitched a new chapter in the history of African-Europe relations. Standing before 24 Africans' head of state, she unveiled the Matai Plan, a €5.5 billion initiative named after Enrico Matai, the post-war energy visionary who advocated for equal partnerships development. The plan is aiming to transform Italy's foreign aid by promoting sustainable development and mutually beneficial partnerships with 9 African countries. Focused on sectors like education, agriculture, health, energy, and water, it seeks to address key needs while generating profits for Italy. Funded through instruments like the National and Climate Funds, the plan aspires to build stable, long-term collaborations, responding to Africans' energy demands and positioning Italy as a key partner for growth and stability on the continent. As the diplomatic caravan moves to Addis Ababa for the second Italia-Africa Summit on February 13, 2026, the rhetoric of equal partnership is meeting the hard reality of implementation. The second summit, notably the first held on African soil, arrives at a pivotal moment for Italy's ambition to become Europe's energy and diplomatic bridge to the continent of Africa. Assessing the first pillar, the Matai Plan in action, since its launch in 2024, the Matai Plan has steadily evolved from a broad vision into a more concrete and structured framework. Originally focused on 9 pilot countries, it has now expanded its reach to include 14 partner nations such as Algeria, Egypt, Ethiopia, and Kenya. This growth reflects a significant commitment to fostering development across a wider region. Recent progress reports highlight a dual-pace approach to implementation. Currently, 29 projects are actively underway, each making tangible impacts in Kenya. A large-scale biofuel initiative is working to dramatically increase oilseed production from 44,000 to an impressive 500,000 tons annually, aiming to boost local energy resources and economic growth. This biofuel initiative will also support the livelihoods of approximately 200,000 small-scale Kenyan oilseed farmers, providing them with new opportunities and income streams. Meanwhile, in Tunisia, efforts are underway to redevelop schools, improving access to quality education. In the Republic of Congo, new water distribution networks are being drilled to ensure communities have better access to clean water. Financially, Italy has strengthened the plan's momentum by aligning it with the EU's Global Gateway strategy. This synergy has unlocked an additional €250 million loan through the African Finance Corporation, specifically to support the Lobito Railway Corridor, a vital infrastructure project that promises to enhance regional connectivity and economic integration. Overall, the Matai Plan is steadily advancing, balancing ambitious projects with strategic financial support and steadily transforming its vision into concrete progress across Africa. Collaboration is key. Collaboration is said to be at the heart of the Matai Plan. Its implementation involves a diverse range of stakeholders from both Italy and Africa, including multiple Italian government ministers, the Italian Export Credit Agency, as well as private companies and civil society organizations. What set this initiative apart and has earned its praise is its inclusive approach. Unlike previous top-down efforts, the plan actively involves African leaders in shaping and executing the programs. Together, they collaboratively design key goals and targets, fostering a sense of shared ownership and mutual commitment. This collaborative spirit was evident when 21 African heads of state and government attended the summit where the plan was announced. The presence of European Union President Ursula von der Leyen further underscored the strong European interest in this initiative partnership model. By working together in such an integrated manner, the Matai Plan aims not only to achieve short-term objectives, but also to identify opportunities where existing programs can be enhanced and expanded. This comprehensive cooperative approach is both original and transformative, with the potential to reshape Italy's approach to international partnerships. The 2026 Summit. The choice to hold the 2026 summit in Addis Ababa, the heart of the African Union, is widely regarded by diplomatic analysts as both a symbolic and substantive milestone. The decision marks a significant shift in Italy's approach from speaking about Africa to engaging directly with Africa on its own continent. It signifies a move towards greater partnership, respect, and mutual dialogue. Looking ahead to 2026, several key objectives have been outlined to ensure the summit's success. First is the accountability audit, which will assess how well the initial commitment have been met, specifically the performance of the €5.5 billion pledge and the progress of the 14 pilot programs. These review aims to ensure transparency and reinforce trust among all stakeholders. Another major focus is digital transformation, recognizing the rapidly growing importance of digital economies. Italy is emphasizing partnerships in digital public infrastructure, DPI, with Africa's digital economy projected to reach an astonishing $712 billion by 2050. The plan includes exploring innovations such as digital ID systems and satellite-based agriculture solutions, tools that can boost economic growth and development across the continent. Finally, the summit will continue the final dialogue on migration and stability. Central to this discussion is the concept of the right not to migrate, which links development initiatives directly to job creations, particularly for Africans' youth. By addressing the root causes of migration and fostering stability through economic opportunities, Italy aims to promote sustainable development and mutual prosperity in the region. A strategic pivot. The significance of the 2026 meeting extends beyond bilateral deals. By aligning the summit with the African Union Assembly of Heads of States, Italy is positioning itself as the primary interlocutor for African interests within the G7 and the EU. It is plausible to note that the meetings marks another step in building a structured partnership, and its goal is to define concrete operational priorities for the next phase, moving beyond aid towards a model of investment-driven growth. As leaders gather in Ethiopia this month, the world will be watching to see if the Matai Bridge is made of a sturdy stone or merely political paper. For thousands of young Africans looking for local opportunity and for a Europe hungry for energy security, the stakes could not be higher.
Africa is calling for faster implementation of Agenda 2063 to realize its full potential, highlighting the importance of strong leadership, regional cohesion, and active global participation. Although progress has been achieved, remaining challenges require collective effort, strategic reforms, and solutions led by Africa itself. The emphasis is on fostering self-reliance, sustainable development, and inclusive growth to build a prosperous and united continent. As the 48th Ordinary Session of the AU Executive Council concludes today on February 12, POA English provides a brief recap of the session. My colleague Zelalem Ibeltal and I, Gemechi Samandida, will summarize the key moments from these 2 days. Stay tuned. Hello, Zelalem.
Hello, Gemechis.
Yeah, I'm good. Well, the 48th Ordinary Session of the Executive Council of the AU has brought us a lot of interesting things.
Exactly.
And, yeah, we can see that this is, the time for Africa to really wake up more than ever, and then, bring solutions for its own problem, and at the same time to go forward. And it seems that, of course, Africa is determined to bring about, real changes. And if we bring the first thing that was entertained yesterday on the 11th of February, of course, for instance, Ethiopian Foreign Minister Dr. Gideon Timotheus just came up with, leadership and agency for Africa. In this case, he mentioned, Africa needs to put effort into realizing Agenda 2063 vision. And for this, Africa must be united. Unless and otherwise, Africa is not united, there is little we can do. And he also mentioned the fact that, of course, he admitted there has been challenges, and all has not been perfect actually, but the continent has observed, considerable progresses, even though there are still, challenges. And many other issues were also mentioned during this time, which is, of course, yesterday. For instance, Africa's role, in global decision-making need to change. We know Africa, for instance, in global stages such as the G20. It was emphasized that Africa, as of now especially, need to have, this kind of, position.
Yeah, it's great that, by the way, the African Union has been admitted as a permanent member of the G20, and that's a great progress. By the way, the African Union has got that membership in 2020. So over the past several months, the African Union has been attending different conferences and summits of G20, and that will elevate Africa's voice in the international stage. But as you rightly said, Gamach, the 48th ordinary session of the Executive Council of the African Union has just been concluded today, this evening, and the Executive Council's meeting and summit was, of course, conducted over the past 2 days, today and yesterday, and it has been concluded today, this evening, and a press release has been also provided following the conclusion of the summit. And the 48th ordinary session of the Executive Council of the African Union has brought together various foreign ministers and designated ministers from various African nations, and it has been conducted here in Addis Ababa, where the African Union headquarters is located, and it has deliberated on various issues of the continent, burning issues of the continent, critical issues of the continent, enduring challenges of the continent. And I got the good fortune of attending the summit, in particular during the opening of the 48th ordinary session of the Executive Council of the African Union yesterday. And there were various African leaders who delivered the speech, a very powerful and critical inspirational speech. For example, the chairperson of the African Union Commission, Mohamed Ali Yusuf, the executive secretary of the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, Clever Gatete, and the chairperson of the Executive Council of the African Union, who is also serving as Minister of External Relations for Angola, Tete Antonio, and of course, as you elaborated well, the Foreign Minister of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, Dr. Gideon Timotheus. These leaders have delivered a very important message, and I think it's pretty much important to rewind and recap some of the messages entertained in their speech. For example, the chairperson of the African Union Commission, Mohamed Ali Yusuf, said political instability has been a critical problem for Africa, and I believe that that is a legitimate concern, a legitimate address for the Executive Council of the African Union, because many countries, in particular in the western part of Africa, are going through kind of coups and undemocratic change of government. We have seen a surge in political instability in that part of the continent. And of course, there are stable countries in that region. For example, Ghana, the most stable country in the most unstable region of the West Africa. And of course, Ghana is bringing African leaders, leaders of West Africa, to bring about peace and stability. But political instability in the West Africa has been the manifestation these days. And of course, the African Union has taken serious measures. For example, it has suspended some members of West Africa because they are not abided by democratic principles of the African Union. So to make sure that the democratic principles of the African Union is respected, the African Union is taking measures. But as Mohamed Ali Yusuf, the chairperson of the African Union Commission, said, African leaders need to show steadfast commitment and political will to make sure that democratic principles are respected, and governments need to come through election, and governments and officials need to step down through election, and those ways of violence, chaos and crisis are not recommended. So the African Union needs to take extra step. It needs to go extra mile to make sure that the democratic principles are respected. And of course, this was a message that was highly shared by the Foreign Minister of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, Dr. Gideon Timotheus, also said that political instability is a challenge today for the continent. Although lots of things have been done over the past few years in terms of economy, in terms of development, in terms of social development. Still political instability, violence, civil war is impeding the continent's growth and development. So there were lots of speeches delivered yesterday during the opening, and of course there are also other press releases and media briefings which I will try to come back.
Yeah, Zelalem, you've mentioned very important points, of course, but let's begin with the challenges Africa faces, which were also mentioned during this session. Africa's role in global decision making has been very low, and it has to change. This was what the leaders agree upon, and at the same time the fact that Africa needs to move beyond dependency, in this case self-reliance and reforms in debt relief and ecological management and climate finance. These were also very important issues discussed during the session. Unless and otherwise you give, you offer solutions to these challenges, it is very unlikely that Africa will gate out of these current problems that it is suffering from. The populations of Africa suffer from poverty. We suffer from low economic development, and these are bottlenecks that need to be addressed. And African leaders appear to be very much conscious of the problems, these challenges, and the fact that African countries, their leaders need to come together to solve them. And one thing that really inspired me was the ideal of Ubuntu mentioned by His Excellency, Dr. Gideon Timotheus, of course. This is, considering all stakeholders. When you deal with, challenges, you need to consider the stakeholders, in that situation, so that all will be able to involve, so that they will come up with solutions. This of course, is a very good thing, and it has to do, of course, with African ownership and indigenous wisdom. Africans have, indigenous wisdom. They have, a lot to contribute as solution for their own, challenges. Unfortunately, due to various factors, we failed, to utilize, the wisdom that we have. And this was, of course, mentioned during the session. In institutional strengthening and development, and African Union needs to revitalize, its institutions, promoting, African-led solutions. Okay, we need to give solutions to our own challenges by using.
We do have abundant knowledge and wisdom.
Abundant knowledge and
to
wisdom.
address our
and
problems.
Africans, need to come together, need to unite, to exchange, these solutions amongst themselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and economic transformation and structural reforms. These a shift from resource dependence to industrialization was also mentioned by the leaders. The need for Africa to go away from just becoming provider of inputs or natural resources. We need to develop our industries, and we need to value add. Unless and otherwise we do this, we remain where we are or where we have been. So for this building resilience and inclusive economy, which is broadening tax base and coordinated investment in water. By the way, the main agenda of this summit, the 39th African Union Summit, is water, actually. And the fact that Africa is not still using its water resources fully was one big challenge. And for this industrialization, resource budgeting, appropriate resource, allocating appropriate resource, financial resource has been mentioned for water projects in African countries, and really the fact that Africa has abundance in renewable energy, and of course we know these days fossil fuel, this petroleum is important, but it is also important for Africa to have options as far as its energy access is concerned.
Yeah,
and in this
but
case,
you know, sorry for interruption, but African leaders shouldn't keep on saying that African countries, Africa has abundant natural resources necessary to propel economic growth, development, prosperity, and so on. You know, these days it's fashionable for African leaders and African scholars to come to the podium and speak like Africa is endowed with natural resources necessary to do that, to do this, and so on. But African countries really need to start to utilize and harness the natural resources, and for that they need to take extra step and extra measures. For example, we always say that beneath the soil of Democratic Republic of Congo there is abundant natural resource, abundant mineral resources, rare earth minerals which are necessary for electric cars, for batteries, and for high-tech industries. But the people of Democratic Republic of Congo do not utilize the resources they have in their palm. So you know, African leaders need to start to take responsibility and accountability for what has been going in their continent. You know, you have rightly put, I love the way you articulated the idea that poverty and economic crisis are becoming a bottleneck for Africa. You know, political independence and political sovereignty could be guaranteed through economic independence. Unless Africans could get out of kind of dependency from external actors and from foreign powers, you know, they cannot be guaranteed of their political independence and sovereignty. So they need to win the battle over poverty. You know, when the Organization of African Unity was established back in 1963, you know, the agenda, the goal, the objective was to liberate from political subjugation and domination. You know, after a couple of decades, you know, African leaders understood the fact that you know, the problem has been like poverty, economic crisis, and so on. You know, once African countries got their liberation and independence from their colonizers, you know, the people of Africa need, you know, economic prosperity. The people of Africa need to fulfill their basic needs and so on. And for that, there needs to be work at the ground, and they need to change the scenario of Africa. And that will be possible through political commitment, and that will be possible through hard work. So African countries need to fight poverty, and they need to win the battle over poverty. And as you said, the 2026 African Union Summit is being held in Ethiopia, Addis Ababa, under the theme assuring sustainable water availability and safe sanitation systems to achieve the goals of Agenda 2063. I believe this is super important agenda for Africa because water scarcity is a problem, one of predicaments for Africa's development and for Africa's prosperity. You know, I remember, you know, a few days ago, there was an interview here in our studio, interview by our colleague Tensai Gabao with the African Union Commissioner for Agriculture, Blue Economy and Sustainable Environment, Moses Vilakati. Moses Vilakati said that this year's theme, assuring sustainable water availability and safe sanitation system, is important because this is the real problem of Africa. You know, as of today, 300 million peoples of Africa are lacking safe water. This is a huge problem. It's worrisome, isn't it? But, you know, African leaders and African scholars are talking some fashionable, I mean, fascinating things, fantasy things, where hundreds of millions of people are grappling with lack of safe water. So the agenda is very nice and it's timely, I would say, and African leaders need to show steadfast commitment for the success of this agenda, this year's agenda, which is assuring sustainable water availability and safe sanitation systems to achieve the goals of Agenda 2063. This is Africa's blueprint to achieve sustainable and inclusive socio-economic development.
Yes,
water is connected to
exactly. Good.
Many things.
Excellent, excellent. Well, today, the 12th of February, you know, as this 48th ordinary session ends, of course, the leaders have made, you know, big decisions in which they elected, you know, 10 member states to the AU Peace and Security Council. And these are, of course, Benin, Gabon, Lesotho, Morocco, Somalia, South Africa. Okay, these are new ones, and the previous ones, existing ones, Cote d'Ivoire, DRC, Sierra Leone, and Uganda, they were re-elected. And now we can see that, you know, these nations are located, you know, in different parts of Africa. east, west, north, south, kind of central. As you said earlier, if Africa is set to utilize its water resources and other important resources, then peace and security is or are things you cannot compromise. And one of the challenges for Africa, maybe one of the major challenges for African leaders to implement utilization of their natural resources, including water, is lack of peace and security in their respective countries. And today, as these nations where these member states are elected, the hope is that just they will do the right work to ensure peace and security in respective African countries, not only in respective African countries but also in various regions of the continent. For example, you can have this the Horn of Africa. The Horn of Africa, due to Al-Shabaab and other forces, we lacked peace and security for quite too long. And such groups are really real challenges, real problems. And if you just go to the Sahel, West Africa, there are terrorists that cause huge damages to the countries in West Africa. So these countries have been selected or elected just to be members of this AU Peace and Security Council, so that just they will do various things. For instance, well, everybody agrees that peace is vital for development, and without peace you cannot develop. And the fact that these countries are diverse, as we can see, their locations are different, east, west, south, central, and this is very important. Because they just will share their unique experiences as far as peace and security is concerned. And that's a very good thing. And of course, this council was established in the year 2004, and it was meant to address Africa's security challenges. Now, it will serve for quite 2 years, 2026 to 2028, and they are expected to implement various proper strategies to ensure peace and security in these regions, in the regions where they are located.
Exactly. Well, the peace and security architecture of the African Union is, by the way, the crucial organ of the African Union, which is established, as you say, back in 2004 or so, to make sure that the continent is peaceful and stable. And over the past few years or decades, if you like to say so, the peace and security architecture of the African Union has done lots of things to ensure peace and stability in the continent. After African Union succeeded, after African Union replaced the former African Organization of African Unity, the African Union has been able to deploy, by the way, peacekeeping forces in various parts of the country. For example, in Sudan, in Somalia, the African Union has deployed peacekeeping force. This is a great capacity, that has never been seen during the time of Organization of African Unity. Of course, that organization didn't have the mandate to deploy forces, but the African Union has been mandated to deploy forces in different African countries to ensure peace and stability. So what I'm trying to say is the African Union has done a lot in terms of peace and security, by the way, but a lot remains to be done. And those countries which are selected at the Peace and Security Council are expected to play their own peculiar role.
Of course, one of these roles is ensuring democratic elections in respective countries, because coups, for example, they are very much common in the African continent, and
especially in the West part
in West Africa. Of course, in many other Africans as well, African countries as well. Well, the point here is when you have coups, it means that you obviously disappoint some people who have been affected by that action, and it becomes a very good ground for further conflict, further damage to both people, human lives, and property. And by 2030, this committee hopes that conflicts will be minimized. Of course, we cannot say by 2030 we can avoid all conflicts. It's very unlikely. It's utopian,
It's ambitious plan.
It's
but
ambitious.
African leaders need to work toward the achievement of that.
If proper
You know, the thing is, for example, the African Union set the goal like in 2020, we will silence the gun, but you know, we have seen more guns after 2020.
Exactly.
So we don't want to be pessimist, but we want to be realistic, and that African leaders need to work towards the realization of that goal.
Yeah. So various groups, of course, competing, especially competing groups, if they have, you know, a chance to negotiate, you know, to have fostered dialogue and reconciliation, then it will lead them to economic benefit, because everybody engages in peaceful activities. Jobs will be created to people, and that obviously, you know, will impact the economy of African countries, not only these nations but the whole Africa positively. And it will also give, you know, these nations or these states, you know, or even, you know, the whole Africa, you know, confidence and progress to keep on, you know, just follow, you know, peaceful procedures and strategies.
Yes. So the 48th ordinary session of the Executive Council of the African Union has just been concluded today, this evening. And, you know, the Executive Council of the African Union has set the agenda for the upcoming African Head of States and Governments meeting here in Addis Ababa. It will be conducted on Saturday and Sunday on 14th and 15th of February 2026. And our Pan-African Media Organization, POA, will continue to cover this super important summit of the continent.
Yes, Zelalem, I think time limits us here, and thank you very much for your insightful explanations.
Thank you, Gamet.
Thanks. Viewers, thank you very much for watching our program, and of course we'll be back to you on 14th and 15th of February so that you'll have, of course, active participation in the events at the African Union headquarters in Addis Ababa regarding this 39th AU Summit. Thank you very much again. Until then, goodbye.
Welcome to Ethiopia, your second home. As you gather for the 48th Ordinary Session of the Executive Council and the 39th Ordinary Session of the AU Assembly, the vibrant city of Addis Ababa opens its arms to you. This year, leaders from across the continent unite under the powerful theme, assuring sustainable water availability and safe sanitation systems to achieve the goals of Agenda 2063. Together, we embark on a journey of meaningful discourse and shared visions for a brighter future. But it's not just about discussions within these esteemed halls. As you can see, the streets of Addis Ababa are alive with transformation, all ready to welcome you. Don't miss the iconic Adwa Victory Memorial, a symbol of resilience and pride commemorating Africa's triumph over colonialism. It stands as a testament to the determination of a people ready to defend their sovereignty. Once again, a very warm welcome to Addis Ababa, a city in motion and a destination that feels like home. Together, let's shape the future.